Shocking allegations. $100 million scheme selling thousands of nursing diplomas, now called fake by federal prosecutors.
Our healthcare professionals play an important role in our public health system. We therefore expect our healthcare professionals to be who they claim they are.
More than 24 people, a group of school administrators and recruiters, have been accused in a wire fraud operation to sell phony nursing degrees, creating what prosecutors describe as a shortcut around educational requirements set by the state nursing boards.
They prepared and sold fake nursing school diplomas and transcripts to nursing candidates, knowing that the candidates would use those false documents to sit for nursing board examinations.
Investigation known Operation Nightingale. Feds issued warrants in 5 states and say that 3 schools were involved, all in Florida: Sacred Heart Institute, Siena College of Health, and Palm Beach School of Nursing. All 3 institutions have since shut down, so efforts to reach them were unsuccessful. But federal investigators allege between 2016 and 2021, more than 7,600 students obtained fake degrees, paying out about $15,000 each for a total of $114 million.
These allegedly fraudulent documents may have allowed nurses to serve in critical healthcare roles.
More disturbing, authorities estimate about a third of the people that received fake diplomas, or nearly 2,300 people, are actually practicing nursing right now.
We have not learned of nor uncovered any evidence of patient harm stemming from these individuals potentially providing services to patients.
The DOJ says this isn't just about the training of those nurses involved, but the public's potential loss of trust in the healthcare industry.
When we take an injured son or daughter to a hospital emergency room, we don't expect, really cannot imagine, that the licensed practical nurse or registered nurse treating our child took a shortcut around educational and licensing requirements.
And Stephen Romo joins us now. Stephen, this is shocking and scary for a lot of people to think about this. Do we know what happens now to these nurses who got these fake diplomas and are working right now?
Yeah, that's the scary thing, that they're working right now. The last things people want to think about is this nurse actually, do they have a degree? Well, the FBI says that the list of those people, some 2,300 of them, has been given to each state's boards, and it's up to them to decide what action to take against these nurses. Now, we reached out to the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, and they say that could include losing their licenses. But as for charges that are already announced, those are focused on the people who were allegedly running those schools and handing out those fake degrees, Aaron.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
At these nursing schools. In fact, I don't got to break nothing down. Let's go to NBC 6 News for the report, please.
It's called Operation Nightingale. Thousands and thousands of people taking shortcuts to become nurses. And officials say Operation Nightingale took aim at harmful fraud affecting public health. In total, 25 people charged, accused of operating and recruiting for 3 South Florida nursing schools.
The schools, they prepared and sold fake nursing school diplomas and transcripts to nursing candidates, knowing that the candidates would use those false documents to, 1, sit for nursing board examinations, secure nursing licenses, and 3, ultimately obtain nursing jobs.
The alleged scheme: sell fake nursing diplomas and transcripts. The U.S. Attorney, FBI, and Inspector General say the school sold 7,600 fake nursing diplomas since 2016. The price, $15,000 a pop, netting more than $114 million. Investigators say of the thousands of diplomas sold, about a third are people actually practicing medicine.
You got to help your old Uncle Charlotte understand something here now. From what I read on ABC News, nursing candidates who allegedly participated in the scam, as you just heard, would pay as much as $15,000 for the fraudulent diplomas. Now, I was born in 1978, and when you're born in the 1900s, you remember a phrase, and the phrase is time is money, money is time. And I'm not wasting either. As I've gotten older, I've realized that phrase just sounds good. Okay, money is not time. All right, time is time and money is money. Time is more valuable. Okay, I've lost money and then turned around and got that money back and then some. That's never happened to me with time. I've never lost time and then gotten the time back and then tripled the time that I lost. No, that's not how time works. Therefore, I don't care how much money you spend, that money will not equate to the time it takes to actually take your ass to nursing school and earn the skills and credentials it takes to actually be a nurse. Now, ABC News said the defendants include owners, operators, and employees of the schools who prepared and sold fake nursing school diplomas and transcripts to nursing candidates, knowing that the candidates would use those false documents to, one, sit for nursing board examinations, secure nursing licenses, and ultimately obtain nursing jobs in medical facilities, not only in Florida, but elsewhere across the country. Oh, this is so crazy. In fact, I don't know if y'all know, a couple of them got caught here in New Jersey Monday assisting in colonoscopies. In fact, if you got a colonoscopy anywhere in New Jersey on Monday, they want you to go on YouTube and see if you recognize your own ass, because there's folks with fake degrees playing games of stink finger bingo. Now, you don't know what stink finger bingo is. It's a game played by a gathering of people. Gender does not apply. Players are blindfolded and proceed to stick their finger in a random ass. Next, they must guess which ass they penetrated with their fingers. All right. A bunch of individuals to skip steps. Okay, sure she does. If grandma still got bills to pay,
$100 million. Action News reporter John Paul joining us live in Camden tonight. John, the feds say some of these fake nurses put real patients in danger.
Yeah, and that is the real concern tonight, Brian, that they may not have the background to actually treat people in a hospital-type setting. You know, I've confirmed tonight that Delaware actually annulled the licenses of 26 nurses already. And the feds tonight, they're charging people across the country, including 2 in South Jersey.
All of us feel this is egregious.
Strong words from the executive director of Delaware's Board of Nursing after learning of a massive scheme out of Florida to sell fake nursing degrees. And tonight, we've confirmed 26 nurses in Delaware had their licenses annulled in connection to the fake degrees.
These people who went to these Florida schools did not complete the curriculum, the education, and the clinical training that is required of all nurses to be eligible to sit to take their licensure exam and to be licensed as a nurse.
She says there are no reports of patients being harmed, but tonight 25 people across the country face charges for their involvement in the scheme that brought in more than $100 million, including Stanton Witherspoon and Alfred Sellew of Burlington County, New Jersey.
He's home? Okay. Can we talk to him?
We tracked down Witherspoon at his home in Burlington today, but family members said he couldn't talk. Over the phone, he told me he had to check in with his lawyer. Wednesday night, the Department of Justice released findings of what was dubbed Operation Nightingale.
When we talk about a nurse's education and credentials, shortcut is not a word we want to use.
Now the FBI is working to notify state nursing boards to ensure that unqualified nurses are not working in healthcare.
You're playing with people's health. How dare you play with someone else like that?
It is important to note that those nurses in Delaware, they have the right to appeal this decision. I also reached out to the nursing boards in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. Still waiting to hear back from them. Live in Camden, John Paul, Channel 6, Action News. Brian?
Yep. What happened? That's my question. That's my question I have today. What happened? Yes. What happened to our grandfather money that Stanton collected? What happened to it? Number one, to the question. What happened to our grandfather hospital case? The operator on our grandfather, they messed up. That's one case. Number two, what happened to our grandfather nursing home case? They didn't take care of our grandfather good, and something happened at that nursing home. The Papi had sore all his body. The Papi's situation was worse. Something happened at that nursing home. That was a nursing home case. What happened to that case? Also, what happened to our grandfather life insurance? We're not talking about Stanton made stories. We're talking about true story. What that true story? What we want facts. We don't want no story that Stanton made up. We want to know what happened with these cases. With the cases. Matter of fact, 2 cases and 1 life insurance, I call it life insurance case. What happened to that? We need answer. You brought small money in Upper Darby. These things were hiding from some of us until it was revealed that all your money you get, all that money that Stanton get, that from the papi, if the papi wasn't going to have that situation he had, and if the papi wasn't going to die, Stanton wouldn't have been buying houses and all this thing. But right, Stanton owed all his brother, his oldest brother and his oldest sister. He owed them. Bring all that document. Disclose it so we can believe you. Bring it all. And bring the actual number, the check that they released. Bring that check. The fact check. Not no Stanton story check. We want a real check. Bring a real check document. The real check document. With all this things, you close everybody up. All your
Listen to this other episode of Stanton embarrassing us again.
The hard clinical and coursework required to get licenses and jobs.
Another suspect that caught our eye is businessman Stanton Witherspoon, the CEO of a popular media company in Liberia. He was part owner of Siena College, where court documents reveal that he and his co-conspirators, quote, solicited and recruited people seeking nursing credentials and employment as an RN or LPN, and sent and caused others to send, via wire communications, information used to create false and fraudulent transcripts and diplomas from Siena College.
The chief motivation.
What happened? That's my question. That's my question I have today. What happened? Yes. What happened to our grandfather money that Stanton collected? What happened to it? Number 1, 3 question. What happened to our grandfather hospital case? The operator on our grandfather, they messed up. That's 1 case. Number 2, what happened to our grandfather nursing home case? They didn't take care of our grandfather good, and something happened at that nursing home. The papi had sore all his body. The papi's situation was worse. Something happened at that nursing home. That was a nursing home case. What happened to that case? Also, what happened to our grandfather life insurance? We're not talking about Stanton made stories. We're talking about true story. What that true story? What we want facts. We don't want no story that Stanton made up. We want to know what happened with these cases. With the cases. 2, matter of fact, 2 cases and 1 life insurance, I call it life insurance case. What happened to that? We need answer. You brought small money in Upper Darby. These things were hiding from some of us until it was revealed that all your money you get, all that money that Stanton get, that from the papi, if the papi wasn't going to have that situation he had, and if the papi wasn't going to die, Stanton wouldn't have been buying houses and all this thing. But right, Stanton owed all his brother, his oldest brother and his oldest sister. He owed them. Bring all that document. Disclose it so we can believe you. Bring it all. And bring the actual number, the check that they release. Bring that check. The fact check. Not no or Stanton story check. We want a real check. Bring a real check document. The real check document. With all this or things, you close everybody up. All your.
But the big story on Action News tonight is the local connection to what federal investigators call a massive scheme to sell fake nursing degrees. We learned today that 2 Burlington County residents are among 25 people charged with operating the nationwide ring. Now, according to investigators, the group peddled more than 7,000 bogus degrees and nursing certificates to the tune of more than $100 million. Action News reporter John Paul joining us live in Camden tonight. And John, the feds say some of these fake nurses put real patients in danger.
Yeah, and that is the real concern tonight, Brian, that they may not have the background to actually treat people in a hospital-type setting. You know, I've confirmed tonight that Delaware actually annulled the licenses of 26 nurses already. And the feds tonight, they're charging people across the country, including 2 in South Jersey.
All of us feel this is egregious.
Strong words from the executive director of Delaware's Board of Nursing after learning of a massive scheme out of Florida to sell fake nursing degrees. And tonight, we've confirmed 26 nurses in Delaware had their licenses annulled in connection to the fake degrees.
These people who went to these Florida schools did not complete the curriculum, the education, and the clinical training that is required of all nurses to be eligible to sit to take their licensure exam and to be licensed as a nurse.
She says there are no reports of patients being harmed, but tonight 25 people across the country face charges for their involvement in the scheme that brought in more than $100 million, including Stanton Witherspoon and Alfred Sellew of Burlington County, New Jersey.
He's home? Okay. Can we talk to him?
We tracked down Witherspoon at his home in Burlington today, but family members said he couldn't talk. Over the phone, he told me he had to check in with his lawyer. Wednesday night, the Department of Justice released findings of what was dubbed Operation Nightingale.
When we talk about a nurse's education and credentials, shortcut is not a word we want to use.
Now the FBI is working to notify state nursing boards to ensure that unqualified nurses are not working in healthcare.
You're playing with people's health. How dare you play with someone's health like that?
It is important to note those nurses in Delaware, they have the right to appeal this decision. I also reached out to the nursing boards in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. Still waiting to hear back from them. Live in Camden, John Paul, Channel 6, Action News. Brian?
It also tarnishes the reputation of nurses who actually did the hard clinical and coursework required to get licenses and jobs.
Another suspect that caught our eye is businessman Stanton Witherspoon, the CEO of a popular media company in Liberia. He was part owner of Siena College, where court documents reveal that he and his co-conspirators, quote, solicited and recruited people seeking nursing credentials and employment as an RN or LPN, and sent and caused others to send, via wire communications, information used to create false and fraudulent transcripts and diplomas from Siena College.
Listen to this other episode of Stanton embarrassing us again.
The hard clinical and coursework required to get licenses and jobs.
Another suspect that caught our eye is businessman Stanton Witherspoon, the CEO of a popular media company in Liberia. He was part owner of Siena College, where court documents reveal that he and his co-conspirators, quote, solicited and recruited people seeking nursing credentials and employment as an RN or LPN, and sent and caused others to send, via wire communications, information used to create false and fraudulent transcripts and diplomas from Siena College.
The chief motivation.
The Breakfast Club, bitch.
All right, Kenny, please tell me, why was I your donkey of the day?
Well, donkey of the day for Friday, January 27th goes to the 3 Florida nursing schools who sold up to 7,600 people across America fake diplomas. That's right. 25 people have been charged, and man, I wish I had all of their names. But let's talk about the schools. Palm Beach School of Nursing Siena College, and Sacred Heart International Institute are all accused by the Justice Department of selling 7,600 diplomas and transcripts to people seeking licenses and jobs as registered practical and vocational nurses. As much as y'all can.
And we're going to be bringing you highlights. George Rodney Smith presiding. We're going to give you a description of how it all went down with the arrival of the criminal, Stanton Witherspoon, his legal team, and other people. Our own arrival into the courtroom, and what happened, what transpired in the courtroom. How did Stanton or us, how did we all leave the courtroom? Under what circumstances, under what conditions? All right, Mr. Gaiman is going to help us to narrate that and help you understand it all. Okay, I'm getting another message that there's no sound from Darius King Nangbe. Please. How is the sound? How is the sound quality?
Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us loud and clear.
How is the sound quality? Okay, the sound is good from Papi Colley, Charles, Rebecca Sion, the sound is great. Saros McGee, sound is loud and clear. Don't mind that distraction. Okay, great. All right, thank you. Thank you. The sound is great, he says. All right, again, folks, the case was cited for 9 o'clock a.m. this morning here in this building, right behind us here, the federal building, U.S. District Court. We arrived this morning, Mr. Gaiman and I, we arrived this morning, and again, we could not have entered with our gadgets, with cell phones, what have you. No cameras, nothing. So we had to leave everything in the car, and we came, we got checked in, we got screened by security, and they directed us to room
202.
Room 202, where it all went down. We enter the room 202. There were a team of lawyers and the prosecuting attorneys. They were all there chit-chatting among themselves. We didn't know who was who, but all we knew, we were there to cover or witness United States versus Stanton Witherspoon, the guilty plea, the sentencing, and every other thing that occurred in the courtroom there today, this morning. So, describe for our folks here our arrival here this morning.
Well, thank you, Mr. Gaiman. Yeah. This case have drawn the attention of almost everybody around the world.
Right.
Liberians and non-Liberians alike. Because this case, you know, in South Florida, we have a huge Caribbean community.
Right.
Brazilian, we're talking about Haitians, Cubans, people from Jamaica, from the Bahamas. So they were all victims of this scam. So this particular case is of interest to basically the whole world.
The whole world.
So when we came in, it was a surreal moment. We came in a little early, and I was stopped from entering the premises because they said, what was the reason?
We couldn't bring our cell phones.
Right, and according to federal law, I couldn't bring my permitted gun on the premises. So my personal protection has to be returned to the car. So
alongside
with everything, cell phone, computers, laptop, anything that has to do with photograph or audio sound had to be returned to the car. So we can say this was a little blessing in disguise, because while I returned to the courthouse and I was being checked electronically, Mr. Witherspoon and his team were brought in, and he was next to me. And I dropped what I was doing, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hello, Mr. Witherspoon, I'm Jerome Gaiman." And he was stoic. He was stoic. He was shocked, stunned. And all he said to me was, "Are you Liberian? And where are you from?" And I told him, I said, "I'm here to cover this. We are here to cover your case, and we would like to have an interview with you, if possible." And then we went up to room 202.
Room 202. And I was already seated. I was already seated front row, immediately behind a team of lawyers. I believe they were part of the prosecuting attorneys, because they sat behind the prosecuting attorneys.
That's correct.
All right, so I believe they were part of the prosecution. So I sat right behind them, front row. Mr. Gaiman came in, sat next to me, and the judge, in fact, Stanton, he was late. He was late. He came in the courtroom after 9 o'clock. The judge had arrived and took a seat and everything. Everybody seated before Stanton came in, and he was like running. He ran, came in, he went and sat next to his lawyer. And the judge ordered the case open, took in the attendance of the prosecution, the defense, those indicted criminals. It was Renee Benedel and Stanton Witherspoon. And the judge read out everything pertaining to the case. Okay? And
but the judge was in coastal where he was magnanimous enough to allow us to take notes.
Yeah.
So we were allowed to take notes, and we did.
We did take notes. A lot of notes.
Lots of notes.
Yeah.
You can see we got a dossier here, because we wanted to make sure that what we were saying were accurate and on time.
Yeah.
So it's documented. So this is a historical piece of evidence here.
It is.
So basically, we arrived here. It says we arrived at 8:55
a.m.
We were camping out here, hoping to catch them coming in and out of the building.
Right.
So we got there prior to the time at 8:55 a.m. We checked in, right?
Yeah, right.
So while checking in at 9:01 a.m., Mr. Witherspoon and his team, they walked in.
One lady came with him, with Stanton Witherspoon. His lawyers were already in the courtroom. Yeah, it was one Liberian girl that came in with him. In fact, she came like a couple seconds after he came in. I knew that she came with him because when people were leaving, when we were leaving the courtroom, he tapped her and they left.
Mr. Gilman, were you surprised that a case of this magnitude, he had no support
no support system.
No family, no children, no wife, nothing. He just came in with the legal team, in whose care he was released during the bonding time. Were you surprised that there were nobody to?
I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised because he did not make this. Known to the public officially. People only hear from us and other people that have been following this case. So maybe, who knows? But I wasn't surprised that people didn't come to throng this place in his defense.
But then on the other hand, Mr. Benadel had the Haitian community here. Some of them were wearing white. Pure white. They came in to support Mr. Benadel as opposed to Mr. Stanton Witherspoon. When he came in and he saw us at the gate, he was stunned.
He was stunned.
Totally stunned. So Witherspoon and his partner came in. The case started exactly 9:10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Stanton was represented by his lawyer, Mr. Benadel, and they were sworn in.
They were sworn under the oath.
On an oath at 9:12.
At 9:12, Stanton Witherspoon and Benadel were sworn in by the judge at 9:12. They were both represented by two female lawyers. Yeah, they were both represented by two female lawyers. The prosecution was two men, but behind them were two ladies and another gentleman who were also lawyers or attorneys for the defense, for the prosecution team. Yeah.
And then they were asked, both of them were asked to affirm by themselves, to affirm that the plea being added today were understood.
Were understood that whatever was going to be said, whatever plea they were going to make today, that they understood it. They were not coerced. Nobody told them, promised them anything, and what have you. The judge was very clear. He said, I understand that you are here to plead guilty, but I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to be honest, to answer truthfully. Then he asked, the judge sought their mental capacity, whether they understood the veracity, the gravity, the weight of the crime that they are pleading guilty to. He asked them that, whether they are taking medication, prescribed medication, or substance abuse. I mean, the judge was very thorough to find out whether these two people, Stanton Witherspoon, Renee Benadel, understood what they were going into. All right?
They were asked their nationalities.
They were asked for their nationalities. Both of them affirmed they are Americans. And then they asked, where were you born? Benadel said he was born in Haiti. Stanton Witherspoon said he was born in Liberia. Are you American citizens? Renee Benadel, yes, I am American citizen. When did you become American citizen?
He said 2001.
2001, he became American citizen. Stanton Witherspoon, are you an American citizen? The answer, yes, I am. When did you become American citizen? He said, I think 2009 or 2010 or I'm not too sure. The judge then said, was it before 2015? And then he said, I think so. He said 10 years ago. He said, I think so. The judge said, okay. We proceeded. Stanton Witherspoon did not know the year he became an American citizen or the month or whatsoever. He did not know. But before that, they were asked for their birthdays. How old? Your birthday and all of that. And they both, Renee was born 1974. So he's 49. Stanton was born 1975. They stated all of these things in court today, right behind us here, this courthouse, right here. Yeah.
And they were asked for their academic credentials.
Yeah, the academic credentials. What level of education did you obtain, Mr. Benadell?
It's the highest level.
The highest level, associate degree. Mr. Stanton Witherspoon, the highest level education, associate degree.
Yep, and they were asked what institution did they achieve these degrees.
Right.
And Mr. Benadell said he got his AA degree from the Bronx.
The Bronx in New York.
In New York.
Yeah.
And Mr. Witherspoon said he got his AA degree from
New Jersey. Yeah.
Some nurses.
Burlington.
Yeah.
Yeah. In New Jersey. Yeah.
They were the answer no to drug use.
Right. Are you on any prescribed drugs? No. Are you taking abused substance or you're abusing substance? No.
And the judge wanted to know, with the aforementioned answer, are you satisfied with the counsel being given you?
The counsel being given you by your lawyers. Are you satisfied? Are you okay with what your lawyers told you? Both answer in the affirmative. Yes, Your Honor. The judge also asked them, were you promised anything by your lawyers or anybody or the prosecution? Said, no, Your Honor. Both answered, no, Your Honor.
And then he said, with all being said, you are being charged with count one.
Count one.
Conspiracy or conspiring to commit wire fraud.
Yeah.
Which is a federal offense.
Are you aware?
And understand.
This crime is punishable by 20 years.
And
they both answer yes.
And then, after they answer yes, the judge went to the charge sheet.
Yeah.
They were talking about forfeiture.
Forfeiture.
Touch on that a little bit.
Forfeiture. The judge then asks the prosecution, say, with this guilty plea from these people, what do you seek? What do you seek? And the prosecution got on his feet and said, we are interested in all of the properties we listed in the indictment and proceeding motions that were filed. All of the properties. And then they asked Stanton Witherspoon, are you aware you're going to be forfeiting your properties with this guilty plea? He said, yes, Your Honor.
And the judge wanted to know how the information was attained.
How it was attained.
And the federal system says through bank records.
Bank records.
All financial records.
All financial records, text messaging, or emails, all modes of communication. And the judge asked the prosecution, can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt whether these people pleading guilty today or not? But can you prove? How will you prove that they committed a crime? And the prosecution said, Judge, Your Honor, if we went to trial, we will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these things happened, that they committed these crimes. Because one, Stanton Witherspoon does not have the qualification to open a school that will grant degrees. So he partnered with this lady, she was not in court, who has the qualification to get the school. And they bought the school, Siena College, and they were 50-50 co-owner of Siena College.
And the judge wanted to know whether Mr. Stanton Witherspoon understands that this case, he can be sentenced, or they can be sentenced to 20 years.
20 years.
And he said yes.
He said yes. And the judge said, I can also, the prosecution asking for 20, I can increase it, I can reduce it. And they said, both answer yes.
And he also said, in addition to the forfeiture, the federal court is going to fine you minimum $250,000.
Yeah, minimum $250,000.
Yes, that's
the minimum.
Yeah, that does not include the forfeiture and all of that. That's just the fine.
Just the fine.
So if you forfeited all the properties, all your bank account, in addition, you will still be fined minimum $250,000 in addition to that.
Right.
And he also made a very startling revelation that I didn't know about. He said the federal system does not have a
parole system anymore. We're in probation.
Yes, no parole first, no parole.
No parole, no parole system. So the judge said, you are waiving your rights. I want you to understand, if I sentence you today, tomorrow, or whatever time, there is no parole in the federal system.
If you are given 10 years,
you're going to serve 10 years. You're going to serve 10 years. If you are given 20 years, you're going to serve 20 years. Do you understand? Rene Benedel, yes, Your Honor. Stanton Witherspoon, yes, Your Honor. So there is no parole. There's no parole in there. Somebody was on the show last night, a drunk driver who went to jail for 2 years was on the show last night talking about he's going to be giving parole and this and that and probation. It is not within the federal system. Let's move on.
And at this point, the judge looked at both of them and said, at this point with this plea, you have lost your right to withdraw.
You have lost your right
to withdraw.
To withdraw this guilty plea
that's correct.
that you've today entered into. You lost your right. You cannot withdraw the guilty plea. You cannot have a jury trial. No. You've given up those rights. Also, the judge admonished them that with this plea today, you gave up all of your constitutional rights, which include
you will no longer be allowed to vote in this country.
You will no longer be allowed to vote.
You will never be allowed to hold public office.
You can never hold public office.
You can never own firearms.
You can never own a firearm.
And you will never sit on jury duty.
You would never sit on jury duty. And those are constitutional rights. But there are other rights that they're going to also forfeit. Yeah. And the judge asked them, do you understand that?
That you are waiving all constitutional
rights. And they both answer, yes, Your Honor. So now, here is a man who waived his rights to vote in the United States of America. And he's delving and melting into the labyrinth body politics. Think about it.
And when they got into this agreement, because he didn't have the academic acumen, the academic credential to own a nursing program, a nursing school that will offer that kind of qualification.
Right.
He went and co-signed with this lady. Not only that, but then he became his own recruiter.
He became his own recruiter.
And within that time, On the first year, he recruited 73 candidates and gave them the fake diploma at $15,000 per. A total of $1.181 million were collected that year.
The first year. Yeah.
Of that money, Benadell got $385,000 as his cut.
Yeah.
And Witherspoon, with 50% of the total income of that deal, got $5.157 million as his cut of the deal.
Yeah.
Total, when he was done that year, they had 707 students apply for the fake diploma.
Fake diploma.
And this is why the gentleman said the $140 million that was talked about, it is the combination of all the transactions that has gone on from the time Stanton Witherspoon and all his partners from day one to the time he was arrested. It came to that amount. So they are saying here, can you describe what Witherspoon looks like when he came? What was he wearing and all that?
He had on a blue suit, white shirt, no tie, no necktie. He had on a pocket handkerchief, and of course, he was sweating. He was sweating. When he entered, I made eye contact with him. I made him to understand that I was in the courtroom. In fact, he passed right next to me and went and sat down. When he turned, I was looking straight in his face, in his eyes. He made eye contact with me. And he dropped his head. And then you could see the sweat on top of his head. Yeah. Very low haircut, sharp as can be and everything, but the water was protruding from on the top of his head, all on his face and everywhere. And he kept whispering to his lawyer. I don't know what was he saying to his lawyer, whether he was telling the lawyer, asking the lawyer if they could ask us out. Is it okay that we are seated in the courtroom? You know.
He was very uncomfortable with the proximity.
He was very uncomfortable with the proximity. But the thing about it here is, folks, this is the country of law. This is a democratic country. We came to the court this morning and went up to security and told them we are here to witness the USA versus Stanton Witherspoon trial. And he looked at the paper and saw that it was scheduled for today, 9 o'clock this morning. And then he asked, "Are you a lawyer?" I said, "No." "What about you?" Mr. Gaiman said, "No." And then he said, "Okay, but I have my phones in my hand." He said, "Phones are not allowed in federal building. So you got to take your phones back, or computers or whatsoever." So I just got rid of everything, and Mr. Gaiman took them back to the car.
Because we want to make sure that at least you were in the courtroom before he got there, so we will see that that's correct.
Yeah. So I took the notebook, and then I went through security metal detector and everything, and they told me go to room 202. They didn't ask me any further question. Okay? They didn't say what your pa name, what your mom name, what your sister name, what your brother name. Nobody said anything. They directed us to go to room 202. And we went in there and sat down and waited for the case to begin. Okay? We waited for the case to begin. Here we are, outside the courthouse, the federal building, the U.S. District Courthouse, here in Fort Lauderdale, bringing you this live conversation. Where on earth could this have happened?
Well,
okay?
Mr. Gilman, real quick, you know, I want to thank you for your courage, taking your time off from work, from your family to be here. But something very, very interesting happened.
Yeah.
And I know it captivated you and myself. When we were leaving the courtroom, when we got outside the courthouse, when Stanton Witherspoon mentioned that he was from the Republic of Liberia, the prosecutor met us outside, and he said, I have an interest in this case myself. He said, my parents are Indians. They came from India and migrated to Liberia.
Yeah.
He says, and they did very well in Liberia. He said, and then when the war started in 1990, they fled with nothing.
With nothing.
And they came.
We had about 30-minute conversation with him.
That's correct.
He has Indian background. He's an American citizen, Indian background. His family, his first cousin was born in Liberia. I asked him for his their names, and that name starts like Ravi. He said they were professor or teacher. I don't know which school they taught. He didn't know much, but he knew that he had some family members that were connected or are connected to Liberia. Okay? But here is it before we let you go. So all of those things happen within the scope, within the space of 35 minutes. And the judge said, I want you to understand that you were not promised anything, that you are waiving your rights. You cannot withdraw this plea deal. You can. So, on the day of sentencing, I can increase the number of years you go to jail or reduce it. So, they were told, Mr. Rene Benedel, your sentence hearing is November 2nd, 2023 at 9 a.m. Do you understand? Rene said yes. Can you repeat it? He said, November 2nd, 2023 at 9 a.m. Then he turned to Stanton Witherspoon. Mr. Witherspoon, your sentencing is set at November 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. Do you understand? He said, yes, Your Honor. Can you repeat that for me? He said, November 2nd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. Okay? So, according to the documents we had, his sentencing was scheduled for today, but lawyers get a way to work around, want to give them little breathing air, another month or so. So, sentencing is now scheduled for November 2nd, right here in this town, in this courthouse behind us here. November 2nd, they will be sentenced.
Not to cut you off, the gentleman also said something. In this particular courthouse and the one in Miami coordinated the sentencing of Charles Taylor Jr.
Yeah.
So these folks, they are vested in this particular case. They know the history of the Liberian Civil War.
Right.
They know all the actors in Liberia. And the gentleman who is the lead prosecutor of this particular case also has a vested interest in this case because he's from Haiti.
He's from Haiti.
And majority of the people in this area that this man took advantage of are Haitians himself.
Right.
And then, because he was also tied up with another case, he asked one of the assistant district attorney to come in And he happens to have been someone with interest in this case tied to Liberia.
Tied to Liberia.
So this case is very intriguing. And the judge said this. The reason that they were not sentenced is they made the not guilty plea through the lawyers.
Yeah,
but now they had to take an oath.
No.
Be sworn in on an oath that they understood
I
what
know.
they were going through.
Yeah, media.
Cognitively that they are sound.
From Liberia.
They were not coerced. They were not under the influence of substance. They agree that this is the case that they have pled guilty to. And the judge read all the possibilities. And he said, are you aware as to what could happen to you when we are sentencing you? And they said yes. Even though your lawyer pled a month ago, but we had to put you on an oath.
On an oath, yeah.
Make sure that you are not deranged. Make sure that you are not under substance. Make sure that no one coerces you. And both of them agree in the affirmative that yes, they are ready and avail themselves to the mercy of the court.
To the mercy of the court.
Basically, they wave the white flag through in the tower and say, whatever the judge gives them November 2nd, they are willing to accept, but they are asking for mercy. But as we leave from here today, Stanton and Mr. Bendel have lost all of the constitutional rights in this country, with the exception of those basic rights that are humane to all.
Yeah, to eat.
To eat, sleep, and be protected by the state. But you will not enjoy the privileges provided under this law, the Constitution. Your right to have a say-so in who become president of the United States, who become your representatives, who become your... None of that you have any more say-so in so. So, Mr. Gilman, of all the sentencing that will go on, I say, the biggest sentence, there are two of them.
Yeah.
One is that you leaving from here, you are a criminal, you are a convicted criminal.
Agree.
We are not anymore alleged.
Yeah. We sat in the court, all right? I want to get this. We sat in the courtroom right behind us here. And Stanton Witherspoon said, yes, I'm guilty of the crimes. I'm a criminal. I lied. I stole from people. He accepted it. Okay? In court, in federal court.
On oath.
On the oath.
Camera rolling.
The camera is in the court. The federal camera, not our camera. Though we recorded notes. But he said, I'm guilty.
As charged.
As charged. In fact, I waive my rights. I waive my rights.
All constitutional rights.
All constitutional rights. I waive them all. Okay? So, what's there to argue about? What's there to argue about?
And one, when we were leaving the courthouse, we were talking to some folks outside, but we talked about how sad it is that this man is going to lose all the properties, all those homes in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I think some in Delaware. And one of the ladies, white lady, said he didn't own it in the first place.
Right.
He never earned them. So he's not losing anything.
He's not losing anything.
This is the logic.
He's not losing. That's the logic.
That's what the lady said.
He's not losing anything.
You know, we felt a little sorry and we're saying this is pathetic that this young man is going to lose everything. And she said he's losing nothing because he never earned it. In America, you have to earn everything. He never earned them. Basically, he's giving back what was taken.
What was taken.
And was not his.
Right.
So he's not losing anything.
So he's not losing anything.
So that gives me a second thought.
Yeah.
That though we are afraid and feel for the brother, that he's going to lose everything. In fact, she said, someone joked and said, everything above the earth he's going to lose. But anything he buried that we don't know about, he may be able to keep. But as long as it is on earth, and it is invested somewhere, whether it's in the bank, or it's investment, or it's in stock, wherever it is, the federal government is going to seize them. And he's not losing, they're just taking back what did not belong to him. And I thought that was very, very, very interesting. That instead of us saying he's going to lose, no, he's not losing. He's basically reimbursing the government what he took illegally.
Right. Okay, so folks, to sum up or cap up here for all of us, Stanton Witherspoon today pleaded guilty as charged to wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and a whole lot more. He waived all his constitutional rights here in the court. He accepted that from the prosecution that he's going to forfeit his properties. He accepted to be sentenced to 20 years in prison, and also accepted there is no parole in the federal system anymore, that you sentence to 20 years and then after 3-5 years they grant you parole and you go sit down home or whatsoever. That does not happen anymore. He accepted to that. So the judge also said, despite all of these, I can increase the number of years you stay in jail, or I can decrease it. Okay? So he's left at the mercy of the court. The judge can decide any punishment for him. Okay? So if we come back here November 2nd, God willing, and we come and the judge said, okay, I'm giving you 1 year, 5 years, whatever time, in prison. Don't be surprised. If the judge says, I'm giving you 25 years, 30 years, don't be surprised. If the judge says, okay, your property is listed, or the government is taking 3 and giving you the orders back, don't be surprised. Or we're not taking anything, don't be surprised. He's at the mercy of the court. Okay? He's at the mercy of the court. So I want us all to understand here today that November 2nd, at the sentencing, anything can happen. He's at the mercy of the court. All right? So, Mr. Gamer, again, you have any last word for the people?
The judge said, you are leaving, you will be allowed to leave in the custody of your lawyer. But all bonds and all restriction remains. If you are under house arrest, you remain under house arrest. Your bond remains the same until November the 2nd.
Right.
And you are not allowed, like I was telling you and the gentleman was saying, the greatest punishment that anybody in the United States can suffer is the loss of a constitutional right.
Loss of a constitutional right.
Somebody will take 30 years jail sentence if they can keep their constitutional rights. But if you have given Stanton Witherspoon or charged of 10, 15, 20 years in jail and keep all of your constitutional rights, he will accept that. But that is no longer the case. He has forfeited for life his constitutional right to bear arms, to protect himself, the right to vote, to decide who is city mayor, the council commissioner, city commissioner, and obviously the president of the United States.
And lastly, if he cannot be part of the decision-making process in a democratic society, like in the United States, if he cannot participate in that process, he must not participate in Liberia election.
And the prosecutor walks to you after you identify yourself, and he says, I'm going to give you my information We want Liberians, anybody that was affected.
That was affected by this.
By this. If they want to make a case,
So
they want
we
to say something.
we have his email.
That's correct.
Yeah.
If you were affected, family
He
members
also
affected.
told us we can contact the investigators if we want to impact the decision, the sentencing. If we want to impact the sentencing, we should contact the investigators, give them the information, and they're going to communicate same to the judge. Also, the judge said on the day of sentencing, if anybody would like to come in to say anything to any one of you, they are also welcome. So,
and we want to make it clear, when they're saying this, they are not talking about any story that you will manufacture.
Yeah, no manufactured
Factual.
story.
Because most likely, the lawyers on his side, they are going to be asking their preachers, their rabbi, their imam, to write letters of seeking forgiveness or leniency. But yet and still, they are asking the victims of this crime to also show courage, come either in writing or in person, and testify as to how this case affected your life.
Right.
If, for instance, the young man that I know from Delaware, he took $15,000 loan, second mortgage on his house to pay for this diploma. Now the state of Delaware revoked his license.
Yeah.
He can no longer practice. He's not working now. He cannot get back into this industry, and he may lose his home.
Right.
All his children and the extended family that stayed with him, they're all going to be affected. So the prosecution is saying they expect that on sentencing day, they won't be surprised if a preacher shows up and says, God bless this guy. Or the imam shows up and says, Allah have mercy upon him. They expect these to happen because this is orchestrated. But legally, equally so, those who are victims, those who are affected, Liberians, Haitians, Jamaicans, anybody, you can come and say the same thing, the opposite.
All right, so folks, there you have it. Again, we are coming to you from the United States Federal Building, United States Federal District Court here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where Stanton Witherspoon and Renee Benadell today pleaded guilty, and of course, they accepted the forfeiture of their properties. They accepted the minimum fine as well as the most fine to be imposed or levied by the court. They also accepted the waiver of their constitutional rights. Okay? And every other thing. They were read.
Happened? That's my question. That's my question I have today. What happened? Yes. What happened to our grandfather money that Stanton collected? What happened to it? Number one, three question. What happened to our grandfather hospital case? The operator on our grandfather, they messed up. That's one case. Number two, what happened to our grandfather nursing home case? They didn't take care of our grandfather good, and something happened at that nursing home, If Papi had sore all his body, if Papi's situation was worse, something happened at that nursing home, that was a nursing home case. What happened to that case? Also, what happened to our grandfather life insurance? We're not talking about Stanton made stories. We're talking about true story. What that true story? What we want facts. We don't want no story that Stanton made up. We want to know what happened with these cases. With these cases. Matter of fact, 2 cases and 1 life insurance, I call it life insurance case. What happened to that? We need answer. You brought small money in Upper Darby. These things were hiding from some of us until it was revealed that all your money you get, all that money that Stanton get, that from the Papi, if the Papi wasn't going to have that situation he had, and if the Papi wasn't going to die, Stanton wouldn't have been buying houses and all this thing. But right, Stanton owed all his brother, his oldest brother and his oldest sister. He owed them. Bring all that document. Disclose it so we can believe you. Bring it all. And bring the actual number, the check that they released. Bring that check. The fact check. Not no Stanton story check. We want a real check. Bring a real check document. The real check document. With all this things, you close everybody up. All your
licensing requirements. When we entrust the life of an elder, for being here today, as I, along with the representatives from our agency partners, announced the results of Operation Nightingale. It is a broad and coordinated law enforcement operation that, as its name might suggest, took aim at harmful fraud that affects public health in connection to one of the most cherished and trusted professions. That is nursing. Our healthcare professionals play an important role in our public health system. We therefore expect our healthcare professionals to be who they claim they are. Specifically, when we talk about a nurse's education and credentials, shortcut is not a word we want to use. When we take an injured son or daughter to a hospital emergency room, we don't expect, really cannot imagine, that the licensed practical nurse or registered nurse treating our child took a shortcut around educational and licensing requirements. When we entrust the life of an elderly parent to the staff of an assisted living or skilled nurse facility, the last thing we want to learn is that the nurses administering the medications, the ones charged with carrying out the doctor's order, took shortcuts on their clinical training and used fake nursing diplomas to get their licenses and jobs. Unfortunately, thousands of people have taken these shortcuts. The prosecutor and agents here today have worked tirelessly to disrupt this fraudulent scheme. Today, I'm honored to announce that their hard work has paid off. In 3 recently unsealed indictments by a South Florida grand jury and 2 informations filed on my office's behalf by Assistant United States Attorney Christopher Clark, 25 individuals have been charged across multiple states with wire fraud crimes, including conspiracy. Their alleged participation in a scheme that involved the following. 1, that is selling fake nursing diplomas and transcripts to individuals who use those fake credentials to sit for state board examinations, obtain their nursing licenses, and ultimately get jobs at hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, and assisted living facilities. Arrests have been made in Florida, New York, New Jersey, and Texas, and search warrant has been executed in Delaware. So far, we have made 21 arrests, and there are 2 more individuals who are surrendering within the next 24 to 48 hours. Before I go on discussing how this fraud scheme generally worked, I'd like to introduce representatives from the FBI Miami and the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General, Miami. The two agencies whose phenomenal investigative skill and commitment yielded these results. From the two agencies, we have Chad Yarbrough, who is Acting Special Agent in Charge, FBI Miami. We truly appreciate the work that you've done. We also have Omar. Where are you, Omar? Omar Perez Ibar, Special Agent in Charge, Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General, Miami Field Office. Again, we appreciate all the work that you've done in this investigation. You will hear briefly from these special agents in charge shortly. Of course, I want to, of course, introduce Chris Clark, whom I've worked with for many, many years, who was in charge of this investigation from the office. As you can imagine, an investigation of this magnitude required the contribution and collaboration of multiple law enforcement agencies. Therefore, receive invaluable assistance from other agencies whose representatives also join us here today. It is my pleasure to also recognize Eric Weindorf, Acting Deputy Special Agent in Charge, Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, and Gregory Kitsos, Resident Agent in Charge, Department of Veterans Affairs, Office of Inspector General, and two representatives from the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Miami Region, Juan A. Vargas, Acting Inspector in Charge, and David Arias, Acting Assistant Inspector in Charge. I want to briefly speak with you a little bit about the scheme itself. We obviously will make the charging documents available to you, but the indictments were unsealed last night. Let me give you a brief summary of what you will learn. The defendants who were charged in indictments and information generally fall into two categories. The first category, basically, the defendants include owners, operators, and employees of 3 formally approved and accredited South Florida nursing schools. The schools are Siena College in Broward County, Florida, Palm Beach Nursing School in Palm Beach County, and Sacred Heart Nursing School in Broward County. According to the charging documents, the defendants in the first category, that is the schools, they prepared and sold fake nursing school diplomas and transcripts to nursing candidates, knowing that the candidates would use those false documents to, 1, sit for nursing board examinations, secure nursing licenses, and 3, ultimately obtain nursing jobs in medical facilities, not only in Florida, but in elsewhere across the country. Obviously, the schools weren't doing this for free, right? On average, these defendants charged about $15,000 for a fake nursing degree diploma and school transcript. And the documents falsely represented that the candidates had completed all the hands-on clinical training and coursework required to become registered nurses or licensed nurse practitioners. The fact of the matter, though, is the nursing candidates had done no work for these diplomas. So think of first the schools, right, as the first category of co-conspirators. Now, you needed a different group of folks to actually bring folks to those schools. The second category of defendants include recruiters. Typically, the recruiters were associated with the nursing programs in other states who looked to one of these 3 nursing schools in Florida for the fake diplomas and transcripts. The recruiters described the fake documents to their students as a shortcut to getting those licenses and jobs. Those nursing candidates who agreed, they each paid about $15,000 for a fake diploma and transcripts. And obviously, they were able to avoid hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of clinical training. Think of it this way. In order for you to become a nurse when you go to school, there are a couple of things you got to do, right? You have to take the coursework. Separate from the coursework, you have to do the clinical part, right? Where you spent countless hours actually getting that experience. These people didn't go through that. That part was completely skipped by getting the fake diplomas. In terms of the numbers, this was truly large scale. Over 7,600 fake nursing diplomas were sold by these Florida schools from about 2016 to 2022. About $15,000 per diploma. We're looking around at $114 million paid for these documents. We estimate that about 30% of those 7,600 diplomas, 7,600 people who purchased these fraudulent diplomas, practiced nursing somewhere in the United States, perhaps currently. Not only is this a public safety issue, but it also tarnishes the reputation of nurses who actually did the hard clinical and coursework required to get licenses and jobs. Of course, it erodes the centuries-old trust we have built with our country's nurses. The 3 Florida nursing schools involved in this scheme have been essentially shut down, and the FBI and HHS OIG agents have alerted nursing boards across the country about this fraud. Right now, I want to turn over to the individuals who have actually been instrumental in this investigation. Those are the individuals without whom we are not standing where we are today. Let me begin first with FBI Miami Acting Special Agent in Charge, Chad Yarbrough. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Yarbrough. I'm the Acting Special Agent in Charge here for the Miami FBI Field Office. This morning, arrest operations were initiated against 23 individuals charged with allegedly engaging in a scheme to sell false and fraudulent nursing degree diplomas and transcripts. As of the start of this press conference, 21 of the 23 have been safely taken into custody, with 2 arranging for self-surrender. In addition to the 3 arrests here in the Southern District of Florida, there were arrests made elsewhere in Florida, plus New Jersey, New York, and Texas. These arrests have been made without incident. Efforts are currently underway to locate the 2 individuals who will be self-surrendering. Healthcare fraud is nothing new to South Florida. We, unfortunately, lead the nation in healthcare case-related fraud that bleeds away billions from taxpayer dollars and its intended beneficiaries. The chief motivation for this type of crime is almost always greed, and that is no different in this case today. What is disturbing about the scheme is the possibility of harm coming to patients under the dubious care of one of these allegedly fraudulent nurses. The focus of our investigation has been on the individuals responsible for issuing these purportedly fraudulent documents as seen in the arrest today. However, these allegedly fraudulent documents may have allowed nurses to serve in critical healthcare roles. Thus, we've provided the names to the National Council of State Boards of Nursing and state licensing boards in all 50 states, as the boards govern the approval of nursing licenses with their respective states. State boards are responsible to take any action against the allegedly fraudulent nurses under their purview. I want to thank all the law enforcement agencies who took part in this investigation with HHS and FBI. That includes Homeland Security Investigations and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida. Without their collaboration, this would not have been possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now introduce you to Omar Perez Ibar, who is the Special Agent in Charge of HHS OIG.
Good afternoon. I am Omar Perez Ibar, the Special Agent in Charge of the Office of Inspector General for Health and Human Services. And today's announcement is the culmination of a deliberately measured investigation, aptly named Operation Nightingale, where it involved nursing schools in Florida selling fraudulent diplomas and transcripts across the country. The deeply concerning allegations at the center of this investigation goes against the very tenets of the nursing profession. The alleged conduct by these individuals and those who received the fake documents is an affront to Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing standards, the namesake of the world's first nursing school, and for whom the Hippocratic Oath was modified and named the Nightingale Pledge. Now, upon completing their training, nurses pledge to, among other things, abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous, and do all that is in their power to maintain and elevate the standard of the profession. The individuals charged today facilitated countless individuals to sully that pledge. Naturally, investigating a scheme involving fake nursing diplomas and transcripts is at the heart of our agency's mission to protect the health and well-being of the American public, especially children and the elderly who benefit from HHS programs, including Medicare and Medicaid. It is true that in this case, we identified several types of healthcare facilities where some of the individuals with these fake documents may be providing services. I want to assure you now that to date, we have not learned of nor uncovered any evidence of patient harm stemming from these individuals potentially providing services to patients. Now, that potential harm to patients is precisely why we've been working with the state licensing boards from the onset of this investigation, sharing as much as we can, as fast as we can, so that they can assess what actions to take to prevent these individuals from rendering care. We encourage anyone with any concerns to contact their state's licensing boards or their healthcare provider. Finally, I want to commend the women and men in the law enforcement agencies represented on this stage. While the work on this case is extremely challenging, your passion and dedication to safeguard the public was evident. And on behalf of Ms. Nightingale, I applaud your efforts to protect patients and the integrity of the honorable nursing profession.
Many thanks, Special Agent Ibar. And I cannot thank you folks enough for all the work that you've done. This investigation, frankly, given the time span it had taken to actually get to where we are, was done quite efficiently. This is all I have. If folks have any questions, please. No, that's a very important question, right? Because when you think about it, these folks, there's always the argument of whether or not folks knew what they were getting into. But in these instances, most of us know that if you're going to be a nurse, there's going to be certain requirements, right? You're going to have to take classes. You're going to do the clinical course. And at the very moment where you actually pay someone $15,000, right, there is very little doubt that you're doing something that is inappropriate, that is fraudulent. Our purpose, though, is the most important thing for us was to make sure, to the extent we're talking about healthcare here, that we stop the bleeding, right? What have you learned when somebody gets a major injury? You stop the bleeding. And the bleeding here is to basically stop those schools from being able to actually put more fraudulent diplomas out, out of, public sphere. As to those individuals, what I can tell you right now, we do not have any current plans as to necessarily indicting or not, but you can imagine that there's a certain responsibility that also falls on state regulatory agencies and bodies to actually deal with that group of people. I imagine there are different pitches, but But obviously, this is one of the situations where if in fact you're looking for a fraudulent diploma, and those recruiters, they work with those schools. So the recruiter is not operating separate from the schools. The school, in one hand, is basically having interaction with the recruiters, and obviously within that industry, within that particular community, the recruiters will know who is trying to be nurses. And think of it this way too. It's not just folks who wanted to become nurses from scratch. You may have, for instance, an LPN who wanted to become a registered nurse. That LPN would have had the credentials, right, to be an LPN. And that LPN decides, okay, I have a day job. That's a 12-hour day job. And right now, that's going to require me to actually spend some more resources of time for me to become a registered nurse. I can just pay for this and get it done. So in terms of the pitch, I don't think it's a hard pitch for those who want to get a fraudulent diploma. Right, that's an important question. And what the agencies that have actually worked these investigations have done is to, first I want to give you a little bit of background, right? In order for you to become a nurse, right, you have to take a test. And that test is actually administered by the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. They ultimately get to know everyone who is actually taking an actual test. They also get the test results, right? So what we do know is the people who actually went to school and, well, didn't go to school, who got those fraudulent diplomas, we know who they are. Those names have been referred to the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. At that point, though, there is an apparatus that's going to follow up on that. From our perspective on the federal side, whether that be the FBI, NHS, there are limitations to what we can do, right? Certainly, folks, once we uncover the crime, we investigate it, and we bring it to the surface now, there are other parts, there are other chains in the link that have to do their part, right? Well, what I would tell them is, well, first of all, it is a legitimate concern, right? The notion that, to be concerned about the fact that when you go to the hospital, whether that be yourself, your child, your parents, I would imagine most of us here have ailing parents and elderly parents that they have to deal with, that they take to the hospital, to the doctor on a fairly regular basis. And it is quite natural to be concerned about whether or not when that person gets to the hospital, right, the person who's taking care of them. Let's face it, the doctors do not spend as much time as the nurses do. So I understand folks would naturally feel really concerned about that. But what we can tell you, though, is from the investigations that we have done, we have not found that any harm has resulted from sort of the diplomas that were issued, those in that fraudulent matter, right? So, I'm not in the business of speaking absolutely and giving have, but from what we have and the information we have now, we have not had any sort of reported harm. But it is of concern when you think about it, when you have nurses who used to know what they're doing, that they're not qualified. And by the way, we know that there are times when folks go to the hospital to find the right vein or something like that, and you sort of wonder to yourself, in the world that the nurse cannot find the right vein to other fairly basic stuff, right? So. So it's my understanding that those schools were operating as schools at some point, right? But the the actual state licensing, entity, you have to have a certain passing rate in order to maintain your accreditation. Those schools were notoriously having very, very low passes rates. At some point, the state licensing says, guess what? You guys need to stop. You can no longer engage in the business of educating nurses. So what they followed up with is, okay, we're going to continue to actually, so what we're going to do now, to the extent we cannot provide legitimate diplomas, we're going to provide fraudulent diplomas, right? So you had people, for instance, some of these outfits were supposed to have stopped in 2018, right? So someone who needed a diploma in 2020, it would backdate the diploma to the time when the state licensing board would have told them you may no longer continue to provide education, right? So the investigators from HHS and FBI were able to see, well, if this person's getting a diploma in 2020, right, with a check that was issued in 2020, backdated 2018, clearly there was some improprieties there. Well, the common thread, be more specific. What would you be looking for? Well, I mean, the obvious thread is this is South Florida, to the extent. The thread I would say is a couple of things. One is obviously fraudsters tend to sort of hang out with each other, so these individuals have relationships within each other. The thread I would say is between schools and recruiters. The recruiters obviously have relationships with the schools and the school owners. The other thread that maybe is those things happen in certain communities, right? So in that regard, there are certain demographics that these schools tend to basically go after by virtue of the fact of who they are. It's like when you have a Ponzi scheme, right? Those are affinity crimes, right? So if you have a Cuban American who have committed a Ponzi, you'll find that there are people that he knows or she knows. So in this particular case, we have a couple of the schools. They are owned by Haitian Americans. I imagine in that sense, and there are some nurses, within that demographic. There are many nurses within that demographics that would have gotten their nursing degrees from there. But keep in mind though is there's another angle to this though, right? So you have the nurses that were getting their diplomas, their fake diplomas down here. But you also had the recruiters who went out of state, were recruiting people from out of state who wanted fraudulent diplomas in those places in New Jersey, New York, in Texas, and Delaware. So that would, tell you the thread there. The thread is we have fraudsters. There's an opportunity to make money. This particular case, we're talking about really tens and tens of millions of dollars across the schools. That speaks for itself. Right. So Jay, I would say to you, as a lawyer, there are times when I ask myself, how did these lawyers pass the bar exam, right? Nonetheless, they did pass the bar exam, right? So, listen, there may be a disconnect in terms of a nurse who did not actually sit for the actual, didn't take the courses, didn't go to the clinical course. That person may be sufficiently smart and be able to actually overcome a test, right? That can happen. And also keep in mind, too, you have to look at the group. We're not necessarily looking at a group of folks who have never been exposed to nursing. If you have an LPN who's applying to be an RN, well, that LPN would have had certain knowledge about nursing, right? And that LPN, I imagine, would have had sufficient knowledge to be able to sit and actually pass the test. I am guessing that may be one of those circumstances. Having said that, though, right, that says nothing about their obligation, right, to fulfill the requirement. Whether or not you pass the licensing test, that to me, that's besides the point. There's a reason why you have a licensing requirement. There's a reason why you actually have to take those courses. There's a reason why you actually have to go through and actually have the actual clinical part of it, so you actually have experience actually treating people, right? Neither you or I want to be sort of the guinea pig for that nurse who hasn't done that, right? So to me, if you pass the test, right, but you hadn't done those things, that's no redemption in any way whatsoever. But I appreciate and understand your question. So the recruiters, part of their pitch, it's also we're going to help you with the actual test, right? In that sense, there may have been some of that, right? But what you also know, though, Jay, is this. When it comes to test taking, which we deal with, and whether that be an SAT, an ACT, or whatever, the LSAT, right, or the bar exams, people can be coached in all kinds of ways to pass exams. And that says nothing about your ability and your qualification to do all sorts of things, right? And I always say that, and I say that jokingly, Jay, but you know, there's a whole bunch of folks who pass the bar exam who have no business being lawyers, right? So in that particular case, one may say, well, you know, there's folks who pass the licensing requirements who have no business being nurses. Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate it.